Hi, my name is David McKay. I'm a postdoctoral researcher on the Mapping the Medieval Mind project at the Department of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic in the University of Cambridge. In today's video for the Cambridge Festival of Ideas, I'm going to be talking to you about forests and plains in medieval Irish literature. 12,000 years ago, approximately 80% of Ireland's landmass was covered in forest. The forests arrived as the glaciers of the last ice age receded and they came to dominate the island. Around 4000 BC, humans started to farm in Ireland. At this point, the number of trees went into decline as humans cleared the forests to make room for agriculture. Fluctuations aside, this general trend of deforestation continued right the way through into modernity, so that by 1929, Ireland's forest cover had reached its lowest level, a meagre 1%. For the details of Ireland's prehistory, we are largely dependent on the findings of archaeologists and on the scientific record afforded by pollen preserved in stratified peat bogs. The medieval Irish too believed their landscape to have been shaped by their forebears, and their writings teem with references to land clearances and improvements. Lever Gabháil Éideann, the Book of the Taking of Ireland, is an 11th century synthetic historical treatise about Ireland and the Irish. The text tells that Ireland was populated in 5 waves of colonization before the ultimate arrival of the Gaels. Each of these takings, we are told, left its mark on the landscape. Commonly, the text shows this by explaining the origins of place names. Ard Lathrand, for example, was so named because Lathru, one of the first settlers, died there, and so on. But sometimes the land itself is said to have been altered. Notably, forests are said to have been cleared to create plains. Lakes are said to have burst their banks, and raths are said to have been built. Thus, so Lever Gabháil says, during the second taking of Ireland, Partholón's people cleared 4 plains, and during the third, Nevatt's people cleared a further 12. In this history, deforestation and land clearance are presented as part of the process by which Ireland came to be what it was. Acts of land clearance were a mark of human habitation, the lasting impact a people could have on the land, part of an origin story which, cumulatively, through wave after wave of settlement, produced the very geographical space which the scribes who compiled these stories would live and work in. Whilst Lever Gabháil does little more than note these events, however, the Dinhenachas, or Law of Notable Places, offers more narratively developed stories about land clearances. In the Dinhenachas of Maghrachna, for example, we're told of a man, Rania the Roman, who journeyed from Italy to Ireland. Rania brought 3 things with him on his journey: a billhook, a spade, and an axe. Useful tools. While staying in Tornish, modern-day Tours, in France, the people of Gaul demanded that he undertake 3 tasks for them. The first was to load a wagon with clay, the next to clear a forest into a plain, and finally to create an inlet of the River Loire so that Tours should have an island beside it. Perhaps the compilers of the Dinhenachas of Maghrachna knew that Tours was built around several small islands in the Loire, or perhaps there is here some verbal play on the name Torinish, which could be analysed by the medieval etymologist as Tor plus Inish, the Old Irish word for an island. In any case, after these labours, Rania fled Tours for fear that the Gauls would make him do more tasks, and he came to Ireland, settling at a place called Imlech Mechan, at that time a forested ridge. Rania, building upon his previous experience, cleared the land and made a plain, whence the name Maghrachna, the plain of Rania, which the accompanying poem describes as populous, wealthy, and possessed of noble gifts. Wealthy and populous the plain was, no doubt, because of its new agricultural prospects. But perhaps we are also to see in this something of a sort of taming of the landscape, Medieval Irish stories about water, in which lakes burst their banks and rivers spring from wells, often emphasize the powerlessness of humans to contend with natural forces once they've been unleashed. And you can hear more about these stories about water in some other videos in the Cambridge Festival of Ideas series. In contrast, stories in which forests are cleared to make plains seem interested in intentional human command of a potentially difficult environment. On the one hand, forests provide wood and fuel. They are, and they would have been, an important economic resource. On the other hand, they invoke the wild, the unpoliced, and the dangerous. After all, Hansel and Gretel were snared by the witch in the forest. And it was in the forest that Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother was eaten. In Old Irish, the phrase "fachal," which literally translates as "in the woods," meant outlawed, in hiding, or otherwise criminally at large. Perhaps plain clearances are bound up with the vast and intricate narratives of medieval Irish history writing, in part because they suggest the development of human control over a potentially wild and dangerous landscape. On the flip side, there exist, albeit rarely, stories of what we might anachronistically call reforestation. The metrical Dinhanachas of Fid Navle, for example, a wood that seems to have grown around Clonsast Monastery in Leinster, tells of Gavel, the grandson of Nuad Uarclov of the Tuatha De Danann, who stole a magical tub from Anya, the Dagda's daughter. Anya herself had gathered a twig from every kind of tree in Ireland, and the tub which the Dagda crafted from them would only leak at high tide. After the theft, Gavel threw the tub away. Maybe he wanted to avoid getting caught, or perhaps he thought that a tub which leaked at high tide was less useful than one that didn't leak at all. In any case, where the tub landed, Fid Navle grew, whence the name Fid Navle, or Gavel's wood. This wood was an accident, its progenitor a thief. Quaint though the story may seem, one has to wonder how we're supposed to react to it. In the current environmental crisis, the ability of forests to capture carbon dioxide has never seemed so important or urgent. Corporations plant trees to compete in a market where carbon offsetting counts. A rafter of rewilding campaigns and prize-winning eco-fiction attests to a renewed interest in and aestheticization of the wild. Governments and non-profits alike work towards reforestation targets. Indeed, since the lows of 1929, Ireland's forest cover is up to around 10%, and the government is committed to planting 440 million trees by 2040. It seems we could use another of those tubs that the Dagda makes. When I think of these stories, I can't help but wonder what the historians of medieval Ireland would have made of our present situation, of reforestation and rewilding, or of human-induced climate change and our hopes for its counteraction. I also can't help but wonder how our choices in this regard will be cast by the history writers of the future. Thank you.